1547, Austrian Alps. A forester named Caspar cut an oak in March. By September, he was burning it. 6 months. Green oak to clean fire. You cut oak today, your firewood guru tells you to wait 2 years. 2 years. Caspar didn't have a moisture meter, didn't have a YouTube channel, didn't have a shed from the hardware store. He had a method so effective that when modern researchers finally tested it, they called the results remarkable. So what did he know that you forgot? Let me fix that. Before we get to the science, you need to understand something about medieval people and firewood. It wasn't a weekend hobby, it was survival infrastructure. In medieval England and across continental Europe, wood was the primary fuel for everything: cooking, heating, smelting iron, firing pottery, baking bread. A single medieval household burned between 4 and 8 cords of wood per year. That is a stack 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, and 32 to 64 feet long, every year. They couldn't afford to wait 2 years for each batch to dry, they'd freeze. So they developed systems, 3 of them, and each one attacks the physics of drying from a different angle. The first method, girdling, kill it standing. The Roman military engineer Vitruvius described this technique around 25 BCE in his book De Architectura. He wrote, and I'll paraphrase, "Cut into the trunk of the tree to the very heart, then leave it standing so the sap may drain out drop by drop." The tree dies on its feet, the leaves wilt, the canopy stops pulling water up, and gravity does the rest. By the time you fell that tree months later, its moisture content has already dropped dramatically. You're not starting from 60% moisture, you're starting from 30 or 35. Leon Battista Alberti confirmed in the mid-15th century in De Re Edificatoria that this method was still practiced across medieval Europe. It wasn't a Roman curiosity, it was standard operating procedure for 600 years. Modern arborists call this ring barking or girdling. It's the same physics Vitruvius described 2,000 years ago. 2 millennia of field testing, but your hardware store doesn't mention it. The second method, coppicing. Engineer the wood before it's cut. By the mid-13th century, records show that most woodlands in England were managed as coppice, pure coppice, mixed coppice, or coppice with standards. Coppicing means you cut a tree down to its stump. New shoots grow from the base. In 7 to 20 years, depending on species, you harvest those shoots and the cycle starts again. The same stump, producing wood for centuries. Now here is the part nobody talks about. Coppiced wood is not the same as timber from a mature tree. Coppice poles are thin, 3 to 6 inches in diameter typically. That means 2 things for drying. First, the distance from the center of the wood to the surface is dramatically shorter. Moisture has less distance to travel. Second, the ratio of surface area to volume is much higher. More surface exposed to air per unit of wood. A 12-inch round log has to push moisture 6 inches from center to bark. A 4-inch coppice pole pushes it 2 inches. That's not a minor difference. That's the difference between 2 years and 1 summer. Research on medieval Moravian woodlands, published through the National Institutes of Health, concluded that by the late Middle Ages, coppicing was not simply widespread in lowland regions, it was predominant. Practically every lowland wood would have been intensively managed through this system. And in France, research from the Université de Toulouse found that coppicing was the dominant management technique from 1200 to 1800 CE, 6 centuries of continuous practice. The French Forest Ordinance of 1669 didn't invent these methods, it merely standardized what foresters had been doing since the 13th century. Think about that timeline. 600 years of refinement. That's not a tradition, that's an engineering program. Medieval foresters didn't just harvest wood, they engineered it for fast drying before it was ever cut. The third method, split immediately, stack with purpose. The third technique is the one that modern science has confirmed most dramatically. Split the wood immediately, while it's green, while it's still easy to cleave. A study from the University of Maryland tracked hickory logs, unsplit rounds, 16 to 18 inches long, left uncovered. After 1 full year, they still had over 30% moisture content, not ready to burn. But split wood, the same species, split and stacked properly, reached 20% in 6.5 months. A field experiment from Yukon University went even further. They split green wood in June, stacked it with good airflow, and measured it in early October. Both cross-hatched and straight-stacked methods reached an average moisture content of about 16%. 1 summer, that's it. And medieval people knew this. They didn't have moisture meters. They had the knock test. Bang 2 pieces together, and if it rings like a bell instead of thudding like a drum, it's ready. They also had the weight test, the crack test, checking for splits in the end grain, and the smell test. Dry wood smells woody, green wood smells sappy. 4 tests, no batteries required, accurate for 1,000 years. Now that you know what they did, let me show you why it works. 3 mechanisms, each one compounds the others. Mechanism 1, end grain physics. Wood is not a solid block. Under a microscope, it looks like a bundle of drinking straws running from the base of the tree to the crown. These are called tracheids and vessel elements, depending on species. Moisture moves along these tubes easily. That's how the tree pumped water from roots to leaves when it was alive. But moisture moves through the walls of these tubes very slowly. The cell walls resist lateral movement. This means wood dries from the ends, the exposed cut faces, 10 to 15 times faster than it dries from the sides. When you split a piece of firewood, you do 2 things. You expose more end grain, and you create new surfaces that break through those resistant cell walls, giving moisture an escape route it didn't have before. When you leave a log as a round, unsplit, you're asking moisture to travel the entire radius of the log through resistant cell walls. That can take years. When you split it into quarters, you've halved the maximum distance and created new pathways. That's the geometry. Now here's the thermodynamics. Mechanism 2, surface area and airflow. Drying is evaporation. Evaporation happens at the surface. The more surface you expose to moving air, the faster moisture leaves. This is why medieval woodcutters split immediately and stacked in single rows with gaps between pieces. They were maximizing the surface area to volume ratio. Modern extension services from Cornell to the University of New Hampshire confirmed the same principle. Stack off the ground, leave gaps for airflow, expose to sun and wind, cover the top only. The sun provides heat energy to drive evaporation. The wind carries away the humid air that accumulates around the wood's surface and replaces it with drier air. Without wind, a boundary layer of moist air forms around each piece of wood, and drying slows to a crawl. This is why firewood shoved into a closed garage or tight woodshed takes forever to dry. No airflow. The moisture has nowhere to go. The firewood industry calls this seasoning, but the word itself reveals the truth. Seasoning means waiting for a season, spring to fall or fall to fall. It implies patience, not technique. Medieval woodcutters didn't season wood. They dried it, actively, with engineered stacking, deliberate orientation, and site selection based on prevailing wind direction. There's a reason the old German and Scandinavian farmsteads placed their woodpiles on the south or southwest side of the property, not by accident, not by tradition alone, By observation of which side got the most sun and wind across the drying months. Now, let me give you a number. 1 pound of bone-dry hardwood contains approximately 8,600 BTUs of heat energy. That's a measurement from the University of Missouri Extension, confirmed across multiple forestry programs. Now, 1 pound of green hardwood, fresh off the stump at 75% moisture content, 4,900. You've lost nearly half your heat, not because you picked the wrong species, not because your stove is inefficient, because the wood is wet. Every BTU that goes toward boiling off water is a BTU that doesn't heat your house. Research from Oregon State University shows that even wood at 20% moisture, which is considered seasoned, delivers roughly 6,500 to 7,500 BTUs per pound, still a 20% loss compared to fully dry wood. Over a full winter, burning 5 cords of improperly dried wood instead of properly dried wood, you could lose the equivalent of 1.5 entire cords of heat energy. You cut 5 cords, you got the warmth of 3.5. You didn't run out of wood, you ran out of dry wood. Medieval families couldn't afford that math. 1 cord of wasted heat could mean a child didn't survive February. They dried their wood properly because the physics of survival demanded it. Mechanism 3. The Holz Hausen, engineered airflow. And then there's the stack itself. The Holz Hausen, German for wood house, is a circular stacking method that dates to the Middle Ages. It's still used across Germany, Scandinavia, and parts of Eastern Europe. The outer wall is built from split pieces arranged radially, tilted slightly inward for stability. The interior is filled with pieces stacked vertically on end. The top is shingled with bark side-up slabs to shed rain. The design creates a chimney effect. Air enters through the gaps in the outer wall. The wood mass absorbs solar heat during the day. That warmed air rises through the vertical channel in the center and pulls fresh, drier air in behind it. The wood dries itself. A traditional Holz Hausen, 10 feet in diameter, 10 feet high, holds about 6 cords of wood and requires 0 additional materials. No rack, no shed, no tarp, just wood stacked with intention. Reports from practitioners consistently describe green wood reaching burnable moisture levels in a single season using this method. One user on a major firewood forum documented reaching acceptable moisture in just 2.5 months on the Texas Gulf Coast. No electricity, no kiln, no subscription service, just geometry and thermodynamics. So if medieval people could dry firewood in 1 season, why does yours take 2 years? 3 reasons, and none of them are physics. Reason 1, you're starting wrong. Most modern firewood buyers receive their wood as rounds, unsplit, bark intact, maximum resistance to drying. Nobody told them about end-grain physics. Nobody explained that the bark is essentially a waterproof jacket wrapped around the wood. So they stack these rounds in a pile, or worse, leave them in a heap on the ground, and wonder why they're still hissing and steaming in the fireplace 18 months later. The University of Maryland study proved it. Unsplit rounds retained over 30% moisture after a full year. The bark seals the sides. The ends are the only exit, and on a short round, the ends are a small fraction of total surface area. You're not seasoning firewood, you're storing a wet log and hoping for the best. Reason 2, you're stacking wrong. Modern stacking advice is often contradictory or incomplete. Cover it, don't cover it, put it in the garage, put it against the house. Here's what the research actually says. Stack in a single row, off the ground, pallets work, maximum exposure to sun and prevailing wind. Cover the top only, leave the sides open. What do most people do? They cram it in a tight double stack against the north wall of their garage. No sun, no wind. A tarp sealed over the entire pile, trapping moisture inside. That's not a drying system, that's a humidity chamber. Medieval woodcutters would be baffled. They understood that wind matters more than shelter, that sun is a free kiln, that the ground is an enemy that wicks moisture upward into your carefully stacked wood. Reason 3. Nobody manages the source anymore. Medieval coppice systems produced thin poles, 3 to 6 inches across on a rotating schedule. The wood was engineered for rapid drying before it was even harvested. Modern firewood comes from wherever: storm damage, land clearing, commercial logging remnants. The pieces are often 8 to 12 inches in diameter, sometimes larger. Nobody girdled the tree months before felling. Nobody selected species for drying speed. Nobody thought about the drying process at the point of harvest. The medieval system was integrated. Harvest, processing, and drying were a single continuous workflow designed for maximum efficiency. The modern system is disconnected. Someone cuts a tree, someone else splits it maybe, a third person stacks it badly, and then everyone waits. And here is the final insult. The modern firewood industry actually benefits from slow drying. If you buy seasoned firewood from a commercial dealer, you're often getting wood that's been air-dried for 6 months at best. It still has 25 to 30% moisture. It still hisses in your stove. It still coats your chimney with creosote. But kiln-dried firewood? That costs a premium, sometimes double the price per cord. The industry has turned fast drying into a luxury product instead of a standard practice. Medieval peasants dried their wood for free in one season, using nothing but physics. You pay extra for the same result, or you burn wet wood and pretend the sizzling sound is normal. Convenient, fragile. The old system was labor-intensive but fast. The modern system is hands-off but slow. And slow when you're burning wet wood means wasted fuel, wasted money, and creosote building up in your chimney like a ticking time bomb. Here's what you can do. 3 steps, all free. Step 1. Split immediately. The day you get your wood, split it. Don't wait for it to season as rounds. That is the single biggest mistake in modern firewood practice. Split green. Split it now. The increased surface area and exposed end grain will cut your drying time in half. The Yukon University experiment proved it. Green wood, split in June, reached 16% moisture by October. One summer. Step 2. Stack for airflow, not for neatness. Single row, off the ground. Face the open side toward the prevailing wind. Top cover only. A sheet of plywood or metal roofing works fine. Bark side up on the top layer to shed rain. If you have room, build a Holz Hausen. 6-foot diameter minimum for stability. Outer ring tilted slightly inward. Center filled with verticals for the chimney effect. Top shingled with bark-up slabs. Your wood will dry faster in an open field than in a sealed shed. Wind is your best friend. Sun is your second. Step 3. Test before you burn. Get a moisture meter. They cost $20 to $30. Split a test piece and measure the interior, not the surface, which dries first and gives a false reading. Target 20% or below. At that level, your wood delivers 7,000 plus BTUs per pound instead of under 5,000. You burn less wood, produce less smoke, build less creosote, and heat your home more effectively. Or do what they did for 1,000 years. Knock 2 pieces together. If it rings, it's ready. If it thuds, it waits. 3 steps. No technology required. proven for centuries. Medieval people didn't have kiln drying facilities. They didn't have moisture meters or forced air systems or shrink-wrapped bundles of firewood at the gas station for $9. They had axes, they had wedges, they had wind and sun, and the accumulated knowledge of generations who couldn't afford to get it wrong. They girdled their trees months before felling, draining moisture while the trunk still stood. They managed their forests as coppice, producing thin poles that dried in weeks instead of years. They split green wood the day it was cut, maximizing surface area. They stacked it with purpose, elevated, exposed, oriented toward the wind. And when October came, they had dry wood, clean-burning, high-energy, safe wood. Your firewood takes 2 years because nobody taught you what Caspar knew, what Vitruvius wrote down 2,000 years ago, what every medieval forester from Kent to Moravia practiced as common sense. Time is an ingredient, but so is method, and the method was never lost. It was just set aside. If this changed how you think about firewood, subscribe. Next time, we're talking about why medieval axes stay sharper longer than your modern splitting maul. And if you want to see me build a Holz Hausen from scratch, that video is coming. Stay warm.